Hello everyone and welcome back to Learning Kitchen Live. I'm Valerie. I'm one of the registered dietitians here at Community Servings, and I'm very excited to be here this week. Before we get started, as always, I would love to thank our friends at Boston Scientific for generously supporting Learning Kitchen Live. So today we are going to make a twist on a meatball. We are going to make turkey zucchini meatballs, which may sound a little strange, but it is a great way to add some vegetables into your meal. It's a great way to use up zucchini. Here in the Northeast, we are in like prime zucchini season. So zucchini is everywhere in farmers markets. If you have your own garden, you probably have zucchini coming out of your ears by this point. But it's also a really great way to stretch a recipe. So a lot of times here on Learning Kitchen Live, we're talking about how to get the most out of your food dollar, especially right now. And this is a great way to take meat and stretch it and make it last for a lot longer. And it's a super healthy and delicious way to do it too. So we're gonna make zucchini turkey meatballs, and then we're gonna make a nice side salad to go with it. And it makes this really wonderful, complete summer meal, although I think these are actually delicious any time of year. So to do this, we are gonna start by grating one medium zucchini. And here at Community Servings, we are very, very fortunate to get lots of donations from local farms. And this is half of one of the zucchini that I grabbed from our refrigerator yesterday. These zucchini were like the size of a small child. So I made, I'm only using about half of one. They were enormous, but a medium zucchini will do. And a good tip is if you have a giant zucchini, maybe not even this big, but big, if you're gonna grate it and use it in something like this or make zucchini bread or zucchini pancakes out of it, it's a really good idea to scrape some of the seeds out. They just release a lot of liquid that you might not want. They don't really have much flavor. They don't add a ton to the food you're cooking. So what I did was I took half this zucchini and scraped the seeds out. And now I'm going to take a box grater and use the large holes, and I am going to grate probably most of this half of the zucchini into this bowl. One of the nice things about this recipe is that you don't have to squeeze the moisture out of the zucchini. If you're making zucchini bread or zucchini pancakes, and you let the grated zucchini sit for a while, it releases a lot of moisture, so you often have to squeeze it out, which is not that big a deal. It's just a little messy. Usually if you take what you've grated and put it in a couple layers of paper towels and just squeeze it over the sink, it'll get the job done. But with this recipe, you don't even need to do that, which I was super excited about. All right. So that's about half. I don't like to get too close because I always end up grating my knuckles, which is not tasty. So we'll do the other half of this. And then it's really just a few other simple ingredients. These meatballs, or the recipe the way it's written, I'm baking them in the oven, which is a really nice way to just not add any fat to them. You could pan fry them as well if you wanted to. All right, I think that's about enough. Like I said, this is a whole lot of zucchini here. So I think we have enough of that. So you can see I have the shredded zucchini, and I'm just gonna add the rest of the ingredients to this. So what we are gonna do is add a half of a chopped shallot. Shallots are similar to red onions. They're not too strong in flavor. If you don't have a shallot, you can't find a shallot, you could use a half of a small or a quarter of a red onion here. You could use a white onion if you wanted to. You could leave this out entirely. I think it adds some really nice flavor. So I'm just gonna finely chop my shallot and just add that to the bowl. And then we're going to add some seasoning. And this recipe is great because you can add whatever flavors you really like. I've made these at home, and I just added some chopped basil because I actually had some growing on my windowsill. So I just added some chopped basil, the breadcrumbs, some salt, red pepper flakes and the turkey, and they came out delicious. What we're gonna do here is we're gonna add first a half a cup of panko breadcrumbs. I think the panko work really well in this recipe, but you could use regular breadcrumbs if you didn't have them. And then I am gonna add a half a teaspoon of ground cumin, which I think adds a really nice flavor to this, and also a half a teaspoon of crushed red pepper flakes. But if you do not like cumin, do not have it, you don't have to. You don't have to add the red pepper flakes if you don't like the heat in them. I do, so I always add extra. And then I'm gonna add a half a teaspoon salt. Lots of kitchen noises in the background today, sorry about that. So that's it for the seasonings, other than I'm also gonna add probably about a quarter of a cup of chopped fresh parsley. We have a beautiful herb garden here in the summer at Community Serving, so I was able to go pick that this morning, and it smells so good. All right, I am gonna just mix this up with my hands, actually. If you're at home, you could just use clean hands. I'm gonna use gloves because I am gonna add raw meat to it, and I would like to minimize getting raw meat all over my hands. It's also really hot in the kitchen today because it's hot here in the Northeast and having a hard time putting them on. So I'm just gonna mix this up with my hands. You know, one of the other benefits of adding the zucchini to this recipe is that it adds, aside from stretching it out and giving it some really much needed moisture, because ground turkey can get a little dry when you cook it. It adds a lot of fiber. So a serving of this recipe has about 8 grams of fiber, which if you're using straight meat, it would not have. So that's a really nice bonus. What I have here is a pound of ground turkey. So I'm gonna add that. You could use ground chicken if you like as well. I couldn't find it when I went to the grocery store yesterday. I feel like ground chicken is a little harder to come by, so I tend to make this with turkey. So a pound of ground turkey, and all I'm gonna do is mix this together. For some reason, this recipe magically works with no binders. So I don't need to add egg to this or anything else. They stay together, the meatballs stay together really well. The breadcrumbs do help hold them together. If you have time on your side, you could take this mixture and refrigerate it for maybe like 15 to 30 minutes. Let the breadcrumbs absorb some of the moisture and they'll stay together even better. But I have done it without doing that, and they are fine. All right, so what you have here is your turkey zucchini mixture, and all that we're gonna do is make some meatballs out of this. So you can do this in a couple of ways. You can just use your hands and roll meatballs and try to estimate the size. This recipe I have found makes about like 16 to 18 meatballs, depending on how big you make them. Or you can use an ice cream scoop or a cookie dough scoop and get a much more uniform size. I just tend to use my hands. I find it just as easy. So, you know, zucchini in the summer, like people who have gardens, one of my coworkers here got a lovely bounty of zucchini from her garden earlier this week. And sometimes it's hard to figure out what to do with all of it. So this is one great thing to do. Zucchini bread is wonderful. Another thing that we have done on Learning Kitchen Live, so if you wanted to go back and look for this video on our YouTube channel, we have made zoodles, which is making noodles out of zucchini. You need like a device called a zoodler to do that, but you can buy hand cranked ones for $15 or less. on Amazon or at Target or Walmart. Sometimes I even see them in the grocery store. And you can then zoodle zucchini, yellow squash, sweet potatoes, lots of different vegetables, beets, and mix it in with regular noodles or just make noodles out of them. And they're like a super healthy, low carb way to have some noodles. So I made these a little big, and I got about 12 out of this. But what I am going to do is stick these in the oven and show you how to make the side salad to go with them. So those should bake for about 10 minutes at 425 degrees. And then what you want to do is flip them over with a pair of tongs and then bake them for another 10 to 20 minutes. You want to make sure the internal temperature gets to 165 degrees, which is a safe cooked temperature for poultry. All right, next up is a really easy and delicious salad to have alongside these. So I am going to make this salad out of chickpeas, cucumbers, and feta with a really nice dressing, and this comes together super fast. So what I have here is a can, just a 15-ounce can of rinsed and drained chickpeas. I was able to find low sodium canned chickpeas, which is always my preference, because you can always add some salt in later for flavor, but the feta cheese actually has a lot of salt in it too, so this doesn't need a lot of extra seasoning. What I am going to add to this is a cucumber. I've rinsed and peeled a cucumber, and I am just going to chop that up to add into it. It's also cucumber season, or about to be cucumber season here in the Northeast as well. So this is a great way to use up cucumbers, is in salads. You know, something else you can do with zucchini that a lot of people don't think of doing or don't realize is you can eat zucchini raw. It's actually delicious if you make a salad out of it. If you slice it really thin using a mandolin or a sharp knife, and marinate it in like a vinaigrette, olive oil, vinegar, lemon juice, something like that, with some onion and whatever herbs you like, it makes a really nice salad. You don't have to cook zucchini. All right, to this, I am going to add, I have about 3 tablespoons of olive oil. I'm not sure I need all of that. I'm going to put in about 2. And then the juice of 1 lemon. I like the way the lemon juice tastes with the feta, but you could certainly use white wine vinegar here as well if that's what you had on hand. I have some chopped fresh basil and parsley. I'm going to mix that up. And you could stop here and this would be absolutely delicious. This salad does not need much else. I am going to add just a pinch of salt, probably less than a 1/4 teaspoon, and a pinch of black pepper. You can put more red pepper flakes in it. I'm not going to do that right now. And then the last thing I'm going to do is what I have here is this is a block of feta cheese. It's about 8 ounces, and I'm going to take about half of it and just crumble it into this salad. It crumbles really easily. If you don't like feta, you could probably do this with some goat cheese. You could leave the cheese out entirely if you want to make it vegan. Like I said, the salad doesn't need much to be super delicious. All right, I'm just going to rinse my hands. Give that a stir. You could let this sit for about a half hour at room temperature, and the flavors will blend really nicely. But that's it. I just wanted to show how simple it is to make a really tasty, healthy summer salad to go alongside the meatballs, which I am going to get a batch of them out of the oven now. So I cooked some of these off a little earlier. You can see these are a little smaller than the ones I just made, but they cooked, our ovens here are really strong, but they cooked in about, I think, a total of 20 minutes. And yeah, I flipped them once, and now they are beautifully golden brown and delicious. And with not a lot of effort, what we have here is this beautiful summer dish. So you have turkey zucchini meatballs with a cucumber, chickpea, and feta salad. And this doesn't need much else. If you wanted to make a yogurt dressing or something to go on the meatballs, that would be delicious. But again, it's good as is. Another great tip, and I've done this at home, is take some whole wheat pita bread, and while the meatballs cook in the oven, just throw a few pita bread in the oven and let them get nice and toasty, and then you can have bread on the side with it as well. So I hope I've inspired you to try something new, a great way to use up zucchini, add some vegetables and fiber to your meals, stretch your meat out a little bit and make it last even longer. And it's really delicious. So please leave us a comment if you try this. We'd love to hear from you. And thank you again for joining us for Learning Kitchen Live. We'll see you next week.